In the decades following the end of the Civil War, the United States propels itself into the forefront of industrial nations. The country has been developing a manufacturing economy since the early 19th century. But given the devastating crisis it has just been through, this meteoric rise seems nothing short of miraculous.
If one is looking at the great moments of change in the history of the world, the Industrial Revolution is one of those great moments of change. It's equal in its importance to the future of the world as, say, the Agricultural Revolution of 1,000 years earlier. And we generally think of the age of industrialization as the period after the Civil War.
This is an era, actually, in which U.S. industry explodes. We become the top economic power, along with the Germans and certainly the British. But it is economic power that is undergirding our ambitions.
What causes this economic explosion? No single explanation is sufficient. Rather, it is the convergence of a number of dynamic factors, beginning with the availability of resources and human ingenuity.
Individuals who were critical in the creation of the Industrial Revolution, including many nameless people, workers and inventors and people who were lost to history. But some of the great names of the Industrial Revolution are, first of all, the people who built the railroads.
Although the railroads, of course, had begun well before this, the 1860s, the 1880s, 90s is an era in which you see the birth of a truly national economy. Communications networks through the railroad, transport, it's starting to link the country together.
Without railroads, many of the great industries could not have begun, let alone flourish. They couldn't have gotten the raw materials to the factories, they couldn't have gotten their products to the markets. And so some of the great names of the Industrial Revolution, people like the Vanderbilts and James J. Hill, the great railroad tycoons, the Harrimans and others.
The creation and development of machines and of machine tools enables the United States to start to challenge Britain and to some extent Germany and other parts of Northwest Europe as a serious contender as in the sort of league of industrial producers.
We talk about some of the great inventors, the inventors of the Bessemer process, for example, and the open hearth steel processing. Going back earlier, the inventor of the cotton gin helped create the first great industry in the South, the textile industry. Thomas Edison, whose inventions made such a huge contribution to the use of electrical power, which became critical to the economy.
By the early 1890s, the U.S. is, in purely volume terms, producing a greater value of industrial goods than France, Germany, and Britain combined.
And then finally, there are the great corporate leaders and financial leaders who were also essential to the Industrial Revolution. J.P. Morgan, the great financier who helped put together some of the great combinations. Andrew Carnegie, who created the first great steel company. John D. Rockefeller, who created the first great oil trust. People are often called robber barons because they accumulated so much wealth and did it so ruthlessly. But people were also great builders.